Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name's Emily. I live abroad and I have lived abroad in a number of countries over the past 5 years. Today I'm going to talk to you all about things that you should know before you move abroad, tips that would have helped me when I was working out how to move abroad, mistakes I've made, useful resources I've picked up along the way. And when I make these kinds of videos that are really informational and packed full of factual stuff, I tend to get a little rigid. What I thought I would do is just take it back to basics. If you watched my old videos when I was living in Italy, I would literally sit on the floor of my bedroom. So I thought I'd try that again today. But you don't care about that. You came here to find out the things you should know before you move abroad. And that's what I am going to share with you today. Whatever your situation, you're going to walk away with some practical information that's going to lead you in the right direction. Little disclaimer, I always say this in my videos, but I'm not an expert. I'm not a lawyer, but I do have quite a lot of experience with this by now. That's what I do. I share my experiences and I hope that it will guide you in the right direction and give you some inspiration on how to use your brain to do some problem solving and apply it to your situation. I've also had coffee before I started filming this and that sends me a little crazy, so I'm gonna try and counteract it with some tea. Before we go any further, thank you very much to Send My Bag for sponsoring this video and making it possible. Send My Bag is a service which operates all around the world and lets you send your bag literally door to door across different countries, which means that you save on the fees of taking suitcase and luggage with you on the aeroplane, not to mention the stress it saves of having to lug your luggage across public transport and onto the plane. I've mentioned Send My Bag numerous times in other videos. Sendmybag.com, sendmybag.com, sendmybag.com. So I hope that just goes to show that it's a service that I really do love and use. And I really think that it could help you guys out. Check out the link in the description and see how they could help you. Whew, I feel the coffee So the first thing you're going to want to think about when you're in the research steps of moving abroad is your visa or your residency. Visas, as you probably know, are permits that let you into the country. That can either be for a tourist or for somebody who is planning to go and live and work in the country. That is different from residency. Residency is basically when you are living in a country long term. It's not the same as citizenship though. I know, it gets confusing. If you get residency in a different country, for example, I'm a resident in Belgium, it doesn't mean that I've got dual nationality, it doesn't mean I have to renounce my British citizenship, but it does mean that I am no longer a British resident because I say this is where I'm spending most of my time, this is where I pay my taxes, so you can see it kind of leads into other things too and affects them. Your home country will have a certain agreement with the country you're planning on moving to in terms of the types of permits you're going to need to live, work or study there. Equally, that's going to affect, do you need to get a visa while you're waiting to get residency? Residency in general takes a few months, I would say, to sort out. So is it even possible for you to get a visa or to be a resident in the country without, say, the sponsorship of a company that you're working for there? What are you going to need in order to sort this out? Do you need a job lined up? Do you need a load of money? Make sure you really understand the process and the kinds of documents you're going to need to see whether there's something you're missing and you need to sort out. I mean, in the extreme case, whether it's not going to be possible for what you're really looking for, in which case you might want to consider a different route to get to that country or a different country altogether. And as I said, visa and residency are two different things, so these are actually two different research processes. And at this point, if you can afford some legal advice, it's really useful because as much as I condone asking friends, getting into Facebook groups of expats in that country, asking them how they did it, laws change, every situation is unique, so nothing really beats getting someone who really knows what they're talking about and can take you through the intricacies of the legalities of it. Having said that, it can be really tough to find a lawyer or some kind of expert who you can really trust, because I've certainly got some information that's not true from people like that before. So the next thing you're going to want to think about is finding a job, sorting out some kind of study experience. Whatever you're planning on doing in that country, you need a way to sustain yourself and, what's your reason for being there? I've actually just made a video that's got 11 tips on how you can move abroad and live there, whether that's to work or to study. So if you're looking for some ideas on how to make that happen, then I'll link that video in the description. But it really comes down to this: how are you going to sustain yourself? Normally, when you're applying for a residency, you need to be able to prove that you're not just going to be a leech that's, going to end up on benefits or homeless and being a burden on the state of the country that you're moving to. So for that reason, when you're going through the residency process, you normally have to show a work contract or show some kind of evidence that you are an independent worker if you're a freelancer like me. Or I think that other options include being the partner of somebody in the country, and normally that means you have to be married or have some kind of legal attachment to the person. Or just show that you've got tons of money in your bank account and you can afford to sustain yourself for at least a couple of years. But I think for most of us, that's probably not going to work out. So you do need to have some kind of job or way to sustain yourself lined up. I'm not quite sure how that works if you're there on a study visa or if you're getting residency as a student. I don't have as much experience with that. So I don't know what kind of proof you're going to have to show of how you're going to sustain yourself or if you have a part-time job. Health insurance. It's not the most glamorous one, but it is something that I wish I had thought about more before moving to different countries. If you are an EU resident, or an EU citizen I should say, then you will probably have an EHIC card. What that is basically a card that is issued by your
home country and entitles you to emergency healthcare in any of the other EU member states.
I've always moved to EU countries, so that has always been my kind of backup while I'm waiting to get residency. Because once you have residency, then your new host country's method of healthcare opens up to you. That's usually how it works in my experience. But I always needed something to bridge that gap in between arriving in the country and being a resident, because you don't want to be left without a way to get healthcare if you need it during that time. But even with me relying on my EHIC card, I did not feel completely comfortable. For example, when I got to Belgium, I needed to see a doctor. It ended up being just very complicated. I wasn't entirely sure on what I was covered for with that card. Particularly if you don't have that option of the EHIC card, then you really need a health insurance. It's so boring, but I'm gonna leave a couple of links down below of health insurance companies that I've used before and have had good experiences with. Having said that, I've never had to claim from them. I told you this was going to be a lot of information, but we can do this. Stick with me. Just don't leave yourself in a vulnerable position. It's already stressful enough moving abroad. Make sure that your health isn't one of the things that you're worrying about. Accommodation. This is a bit more fun, right? Because you're thinking about where you're going to live in your new country. So the first thing I would say about accommodation is be super prepared. Like, even when you're not actively searching, when you're not at that stage yet, join Facebook groups of expats in the country that you're moving to. Join Facebook groups where you can rent flats or houses in the city or town that you're planning on moving to. The reason that's really helpful is that you're going to start to see lots of listings for flats and houses, and you can really start to get an idea of what is within your budget. So when you are actively looking, you don't jump on the first thing that seems like a great deal and realise it's way too good to be true and it's a scam, or equally, you're paying way too much. Speaking of scams, it's very easy to get scammed in terms of accommodation. Having said that, I am a huge fan of using websites and Facebook groups to find a place to live, but you have to do it the right way. Just some base rules here. Never hand over money if you haven't seen the place in person. Never hand over any money until you have signed a contract. You need to get to your new city or town a few weeks early before you need to start your job or whatever. I am going to be making a whole separate video about accommodation, and I always recommend actually going to see the place in person. So you've been following my tips, you've been doing loads of research, and you're a few weeks in now. I know it's time, you're going to move abroad. How are you going to get all your stuff there? So at this point, I think it's really good to just have a realistic check-in with yourself. How much of the stuff that you own are you actually going to take with you? I'm not looking to settle in one place just at the moment, so for me it was a case of really downsizing on the things that I owned so that I could fit them into a few suitcases. And then what I did was I would take one suitcase with the things that I needed day to day immediately with me, and I would get the rest of my suitcases sent over a few days or weeks later using sendmybag.com. And as I said, I really do use this service and I really do love it. So I'd really encourage all of you to have a think before you move. Are you going to sell some of your things? Are you going to get everything sent over? Just kind of weigh up, is it really worth it? Do you even need it at all? Or maybe it's something that you decide, okay, no, this is really special to me. And yes, it's expensive to send it over, but I really want to take it. And that's okay too. Again, onto a slightly more serious topic, which is money. Loads of stuff go into this, but the most immediate things you're probably going to want to think about is just how the hell do you pay for stuff when you first arrive in the new country, especially if it's in a new currency? So at this point, I used a service when I first moved from the UK to Italy called WeSwap, which is basically a prepaid card. And on that card, I could put different currencies. So it was really useful for getting out cash and paying in restaurants, and it saved me a lot of money on just using my regular card. Because again, you're probably not going to be able to get a bank account until you've been there for a few weeks. In order to get a bank account, often you need an address. Sometimes to get an address, you need a bank account. So you're going to be doing some problem solving and trying to work that out. So definitely don't expect your new bank account to be sorted out first thing. Another service which I found really useful, converting things between euros and pounds, or, you know, in your case, the currencies may be different, is TransferWise, which is basically a service that allows you to exchange your money between a range of currencies, and you save a lot of money on the commission. Another thing to consider here is, are you going to keep your bank account in your home country open? This is going to depend if you have an address still in your home country to link it to, maybe a parent's address. But check up on that, and if you decide you are going to keep it open, tell them you're going to be abroad, because if you're going to have to use your card in an emergency, you don't want to get it blocked and then to unblock it have to go to your bank, which is back in your home country. I think that happened to me before. I think I blocked my card on phone banking, I think, and I wasn't due to go back to the UK for a bit. Now onto phones. Phones are a necessity in our modern society. As much as I hate to admit it, I use my phone for a lot of things. Obviously calls and texts, but also to use the internet. So you're probably not going to sort out a brand new SIM card and stuff straight away on your first day in the new country. So I would recommend coming up with a plan of how you're going to bridge that gap until you're able to sort out a new SIM card, phone contract, whatever you want to do. If you're from the UK, then it's worth having a look at the 3 Feel at Home scheme. That allows you to use your phone as if you were in your native country in a load of countries abroad. If you're from the US, then Google, I think it's called Google Fi. And I'm not too familiar with the details, but I'm pretty sure it's like you can use your US phone as if you were at home in almost any country in the world. What I'm going to do is put both of these links in the description down below so you can do your own research, but I'm pretty sure that Google Fi only works for US residents. But in general, I would recommend getting a phone in the new country you're going to. No, not a phone. You don't need to buy a new phone. I would recommend getting a SIM card in the new country that you're going to. In general, it's going to be cheaper, although of course I obviously have not researched every single country before making this video. One thing that's going to make that a lot easier is once you actually start to meet people in the place, whether it be via these Facebook groups or just being in the place, meeting people at coffee shops, wherever, you can actually start to ask real life people, what was the best phone contact that you found? Yeah, that segues really nicely into my next category, which is meeting people. This makes every single thing that I'm talking about in this video much easier. First of all, because once you've got contacts in the place, you can actually ask about, where should I open a bank account? How much should I be paying for accommodation? Where are the best places to look for accommodation? Once you start to meet people, it just really makes the whole process easier. And I would really recommend trying to connect with a mix of locals and expats, because the locals are going to be able to give you local knowledge, things that expats might not be as familiar with, whereas expats have been through all the kind of bureaucracy things. They understand what it's like to be a foreigner in this new place. But again, with bureaucracy, it gets very complicated and every case is different. The aim with meeting people is to make deeper connections as well. You really want to build up a secure support network in the new country that you're going to, because it is going to be stressful, it's going to be full of anxieties at times, and sometimes it can be lonely and you're going to feel homesick and overwhelmed, and during those times you want to have people who you can really trust. It takes a while to build up those relationships, but it's all about making lots of little steps. So you do at the beginning have to force yourself to get out there, meet lots of people, you'll make lots of acquaintances along the way, but only a few of them are really going to be those good friends that stick. So how do you meet people? I'm going to make a whole new video about this in the new year, so if you do have any specific questions about that, then you can leave it in the comments. But in a nutshell, I've mentioned Facebook groups. Facebook groups are great, meetup.com is great. If you're not a huge fan of these internet meetups, which I would ask you to be open-minded and just consider them, you can do things like go to coffee shops, see if there are events being advertised there. Local bookshops as well often have local events being advertised. Language swap evenings are quite good for meeting people who are interested in people from different countries. Are you still with me? I don't know if it's the like huge amount of information or the caffeine that's starting to make me feel a little bit overwhelmed. We're all gonna be okay. Another kind of serious one, but one that I wish that I had learnt about sooner, is budget. Obviously I knew this existed, I just was very poor at implementing it at the beginning. Applying for visas, getting your residency, moving your bags across countries, getting health insurance. What I would recommend you do is that you list all of them out. This is a great time to start yourself a spreadsheet. One thing I can say is that you're gonna feel a lot of lack of stability when you're moving country, and having a financial lack of stability while you're doing that is really scary, makes you feel really vulnerable. I went through that myself before, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone. If you can make one more thing secure in your life while you're going through this process, then you're going to feel so much better. Make a list of all of the costs that you can foresee, and I'm promising you right now, there are going to be unforeseen costs. There's going to be a problem that you're going to need to solve, and it's going to cost money. There's going to be little things that, as much as you researched, you didn't know existed or you forgot about, that are going to creep in. So take your budget, put it together, now double it. That's the best advice I can give you, and I really don't want you to go through that horrible, murky, like it could turn bad, guys, so please take this seriously. I feel like a naggy mum. I can't believe I've turned into this person. Budgeting as well, this is a great time for you to consider what it's going to cost to live in the new country. You can start to do this way in advance. You can think, okay, how much is it going to cost to live there in terms of accommodation? How much do groceries cost? How much does it cost to eat out? Like, consider the type of lifestyle you're envisaging there, work out how much it actually costs, and then work out if your plan of getting a job, the type of job you want, supporting yourself, however you're planning on dealing with money, is that realistic, and how are you going to make it happen? And my last point, I like to end with something that kind of takes the question a little bit deeper and opens up the conversation a bit more. So let's talk for a second about culture shock. This is the label I chose to put on this huge umbrella, which basically encompasses everything that's not the practical tips I've put out there. Aside from navigating bureaucracy in the new country and accommodation and bank accounts and phones, you're going to have a lot of life experiences, life lessons and emotions while you're moving country. And this is true whether or not you've done it before. I've moved country a number of times now, and every time is different. Moving, we all know, is one of the most stressful things you can do. Like, it's stressful and full of anxiety. And then you add that on top of the fact that you're moving to a new country which has a new culture, which has a new way of doing things. You're not even going to know necessarily at first how to send a letter in the new country, because there are little things that change the way you do the most simple of processes depending on where you are. That takes a bit of a toll. So to try and counterbalance some of that stress and anxiety of moving and of navigating a new culture, try to use the points that I've put down today to set out a plan. Because when you arrive in that new country and you're exhausted and you're wondering whether you can even do this, if you have that plan listed out and you know at least what your next step should be, then it's going to take a lot of that pressure off where your judgment is not at its sharpest. But most of all, during this time, you need to be kind to yourself. Yes, there's a time limit on some of the things you need to do. Yes, it's important to find a place to live, to sort out your residency, but those things are going to take time no matter what. And where you can, please do take the time to kind of stop, take a look around at the new country you're in, remind yourself of how much you've already accomplished just to get here, and treat yourself, look after yourself, go out, have a coffee, have a drink, do whatever you love to do in this new country that you really wanted to move to. I promise you, you've got this. This is super exciting stuff. So yeah, be proud of yourself that you've got this far. So with that, I'm going to pass the question off to you. Do you have any great tips or resources for when you've moved abroad in the past? If you do, please leave them in the comments. I'd love to hear them, and I'm sure that other people watching the video would love to hear them too. And thank you again to Send My Bag for making this video possible. If you are moving abroad soon, or if you're going to be taking a trip abroad soon, definitely check out the link in the description to see how they could help you. If you've enjoyed, be sure to subscribe because there'll be more videos like this coming soon. Good luck everyone, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!